What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over what you need to know about Fortnite's new update, which actually is the end of Winterfest, but we got a few items unvaulted as well. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below what you think of this update. So today's update was the end of Winterfest, like I said, which is the holiday end of year event. So the Winter Lodge is no longer available. And then also several items were vaulted in Battle Royale, so removed. The Peppermint Candy, Blizzard Grenade, Icy Feet, and Presents were all removed. I did get the present in one match today, and I don't really know why that was the case, but all these items are supposed to be vaulted. The Winterfest NPCs were also removed. So the Santa Shack at Mass Meadows, the Snoop Dogg NPC at Crackshot's Cabin, the Mariah Carey NPC, and then Sergeant Winter from the Crashed Plane were all removed from the game, and the Battle Bus has been reverted back to the regular Battle Bus. There is snow on the map still, but this is just like temporary. It will go away over time, but the snow stays a little bit longer than Winterfest does. The additional chests that were added from the Christmas trees that came in for Winterfest were also removed. So there's a few less chests at a lot of the different POIs, and that is the Winterfest changes. There was 3 items unvaulted or added to the loot pool today: the Kinetic Blade, the Lock-On Pistol, and the Ranger AR. I'm going to talk about the Kinetic Blade first because I think this is the one that people are most excited for. This is a fan favorite mobility item, and you can get this just from looting, like regular chests, I believe floor loot as well. The Katana Racks, or the Typhoon Blade stance, only drop the Typhoon Blade. They don't drop the Kinetic Blade. There's 2 different swords. It has a melee attack and a dash mobility ability. For the attack, you hit your shoot button, and for the dash, you hit your aim down sight button, and then kind of how you look will angle your dash. It's kind of sounds weird to say, but I feel like it's very intuitive to use. It has 3 charges, and each dash uses a charge, and then the charges come back after a few seconds of being used. And then one new change with the Kinetic Blade in Chapter 6 is going to be that it has a durability aspect as well, like how the Typhoon Blade has. So any of your melee attacks with this will degrade the durability. And then also anytime you use any of the dashes, it uses 5% of the durability. So as of a max, I believe you have 20 dashes for each Kinetic Blade before it breaks and you'll have to find a new one. This is pretty unfortunate, and I saw a lot of people complaining about this, but for me, with the amount of people I run into over the course of the game and how little I use my mobility for just mobility, the durability change isn't really that huge to me, because a lot of times I'm just using a car to travel around the map, and then I use something like the Kinetic Blade when I'm in an actual fight. I also had a lot of people ask me today, while I was streaming, so I thought it'd be good to mention this. They were asking if the Typhoon Blade is still in the game. That is a yes. And then I also had a lot of people ask me if you can have both in your inventory, and that is a yes as well. It's not like they're mutually exclusive. You can have both swords if you want. They just do 2 very different things. The dash mobility on this is quite good, and in Chapter 4 Season 2, when it was initially added, it was like the best mobility in that season. But with the other mobility items currently in the loot pool right now, I don't think this will be my preferred choice, even though I really liked this item. Like, one of the things I really liked about this item was I felt that it was very balanced. You couldn't just use it to completely get out of a bad situation if the enemy had decent aim, and then you also just couldn't push people with it for free all the time if the enemy had decent aim. It was somewhat counterable while still being a very good mobility item. And then we have things like shockwave grenades in the game that aren't as counterable. You know, they're much faster at moving you quickly, and then the void mask as well, you throw it out and you teleport. So I feel like just among the current mobility items in the game, the Kinetic Blade isn't that incredible, but I'm happy to have it. Like, if I don't have shockwaves or I don't have a void mask, I'm down to take this. So it's not like it's a bad item, it's just kind of overshined by some of the other mobility items in the game right now. And then I also had a lot of people tell me it feels slower to them. Like, the dash charge up time kind of feels slower than it did in Chapter 4. And this didn't really feel that different to me, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe it's different, maybe it's not. But I think one of the main differences why it might feel that way now is just, like I said, the other mobility items that we're used to having in the loot pool and that we currently have in the loot pool, but also the AR that we have in the loot pool. The Hollow Twister AR can melt people very fast when they're in that kind of charge up animation. And the Red Eye was incredible that we had in Chapter 4 as well, but it had a slower fire rate, and a lot of people tap fired the Red Eye because of the recoil on it. So I just feel like the Hollow Twister AR being just a better AR makes something like the Kinetic Blade just more inconvenient to use. And as far as being a melee weapon, I don't think it's very good. I think the Typhoon Blade is a much more powerful melee weapon. So if you are picking one of these swords just based on the melee aspect as far as hitting people with it as a weapon, you're probably going to want to use the Typhoon Blade. The Kinetic Blade hits for like 70, I think, but it kind of locks the user into an animation where if you miss your first attack with the Kinetic Blade, you'll often just lose the fight because of that. Whereas the Typhoon Blade, I feel like is just so much more forgiving. And then the sprint jumping mobility of the Typhoon Blade, I also think it's just better for getting on people if you do want to melee. So if you are a melee spammer, you're going to want to use the Typhoon Blade. If you hate melee weapons, the Kinetic Blade being added probably isn't going to change that much for you. I think the melee aspect of it is quite bad. And so the other item that we had, or one of the other items that we had in this update, is a lock-on pistol. And this item is good. It's a pistol that can be free-fired. We did have this in both Chapter 4 and 5, so I'm sure many of you are aware of it and are used to it. But you can either shoot it freely, like how you would a regular weapon, or you can lock onto enemies. To lock onto people, you just aim at them without shooting for a period of time, and then you'll see the little like charges fill up. And then once it's locked, you can hit the shoot button, and it will shoot those locked shots faster than like the basic fire rate, I think. And then also they're guaranteed to hit if you're locked on. So it is good in that aspect. It does 25 damage, and the lock-on effect works for up to 50 meters. I think there is a small headshot multiplier, and if you lock, it's just kind of random whether or not they hit the head or not. But if you fully lock onto an enemy with all 4 shots and shoot, you'll get 100 damage out of that. It's solid, but I don't think it's the greatest weapon in the game. Last time it was in the game, however, it was very good because it was a hit scan weapon, meaning you didn't have to worry about bullet drop and travel time, while every other weapon in the game was projectile. But one of the main changes we got in Chapter 6 is that the weapons went back to being hit scan rather than projectile. So that advantage the lock-on pistol had in Chapter 5 is non-existent in Chapter 6. I saw a decent amount of people talking about that today, but like its main advantage last chapter was just that everything was a bit harder to use. Now everything's easier to use, so that advantage doesn't really exist. One situation I think a lot of people will really like this weapon for is when enemies are using mobility. And the times where I think this is really going to matter to you is like if somebody's pushing you with the sword, if somebody's flying around on the island and you aren't really good at shooting people in those situations. Like I'm pretty good with the Hollow Twister AR, so I rarely have a hard time beaming people out of the air on island. But if you really struggle with that, then having the lock-on pistol for those situations would maybe be useful to you. And then same with somebody trying to sword you. It's kind of iffy to like, you know, be patient and lock on to somebody pushing you with the sword. But that might be something you want to do with the lock-on pistol. It really just depends on like your ability to aim regularly and deal with those situations. And if you have a really hard time dealing with those situations, maybe the lock-on pistol could help you out. But me personally, I don't think I really want to carry it specifically for those situations. Both the lock-on pistol and the Kinetic Blade, I think, are decent items to have. The Kinetic Blade is quite good, and I think a lot of people will be happy to have it. And I definitely see myself using it if I don't have other mobility items that I'd rather have. And then the lock-on pistol, I don't really want to use, but I could see people enjoying it for the situations I outlined. The Ranger AR was also unvaulted today, and I have no idea why. This is a third-person bloom AR, so kind of like the Fury AR where it doesn't have a sight or anything. You have to worry about bloom and spread over time. And it's more of like a high damage, slow fire rate, so more meant for like medium to longer ranges. But the fact that we have something like the Hollow Twister AR in the game, I feel like just really invalidates this weapon. If you're like 100 meters away, there's no world in which you'd rather have the Ranger AR than the Hollow Twister AR. I think the Hollow Twister AR is just incredible. And then even if you're closer, like maybe you say you want a more versatile AR for like medium range, the Fury AR does that much better than the Ranger AR. So I feel like it's just in a weird spot where it's not as good as either of the ARs. I feel like at anything, I feel like I'd rather have the Fury AR in every situation than the Ranger. And then the Hollow Twister, I'd also rather have in any situation. So I'm not really sure why the Ranger AR was unvaulted today, and I don't really know anybody who's going to use it or why anyone would want to use it, but the Ranger AR was added to the loot pool. I think it's not like the bad gun, but every time they have it in the loot pool, it's just not as good as the other options, and that's kind of where it is again. So that is going to be it for this update. Lock-on pistol, solid. Kinetic Blade, quite good. Winterfest stuff gone. Ranger AR is terrible. Let me know what you guys think of this update down below. What you're going to use these items for, or if you are going to use them. And if you enjoyed this, give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.